radio, worldwide sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Good morning and welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com. We are the world's greatest radio and you are in touch with The Compensatory Concept. I am the co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard. On the line we have live from Washington, D.C., Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., who will be glad to take your questions or comments and respond to them. And as usual, if you'd like to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9766. Now, I'll let you know when it's good for you to call in. Not right now. Give me about 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll able to get your calls. Also, if you would like to email me or Gmail me, you can at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. And I can't promise that I will get your message on this week, but I will try to get your message on. Some subjects that you may want to think about before you call in. We want to have Mr. Fuller address the John Henson story. He is a black man in the NBA, as a matter of fact, plays for the Milwaukee Bucks, signed a $10 million contract. Or has over $10 million, and then signed a $44 million contract, but will refuse service in a store because of his color. We're going to maybe have a chance to discuss that. We may discuss blacks with Irish names. That's a story that you need to understand when you hear that. So, for example, McWilliams, McDonald, McFadden, or whatever. We wonder why blacks have those last names. We may try to hit on the African Holocaust. I know when that word comes to mind, people think of one particular so-called race of people, people. I hate to use the word race because there's only one race to me, and that's the human race. But anyway, we're going to discuss that. Then we'll have Mr. Fuller, if we get time, to discuss racial code words. I want you to think about this. Political people use these words such as inner city, states' rights, forced busing, tax cuts, law and order, welfare and food stamps, Shira law, and illegal aliens. We have a story by Haney Lopez of Dog Whistle Politics. Janae Desmond Harris wrote about that from theroots.com, wrote about these code words that are being used, and also may discuss some things that were not reported in the national media. Did you know that 5 churches in the Ferguson area were bombed since last week? Yeah, how about that? Didn't know that, did you? And then the church drummer who was killed over car trouble. Yeah, we need to discuss that, or at least have an opportunity to discuss that. But before we get into those issues, if we get into those issues, we want to introduce to some and present to others Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Mr. Fuller, good morning, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
Yes, sir, still learning. Before and if we hit some of those topics that I did raise, is there any one particular, or are there any subjects that you would like to get into before we try to hit some of those subjects?
I would just mention one thing.
Yes, sir.
I noticed an article in the Washington Post paper this morning. A about a killing that happened as a result of domestic violence, quote unquote. And every now and then I address that to remind people of something that I have codified, I believe, that I think should be done, should be understood. And that is, first of all, there is no such thing as domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can drop that domestic. Just call it violence, period. That's what it is. Mistreating someone. Violence is mistreating someone. Counterviolence is stopping someone from mistreating people. Nonviolence means the complete absence of violence. Well, you certainly don't have that anywhere in the world. You always have a violent situation or a counter-violent situation, a combination of both going on all the time, because we're in a violent world. The system of white supremacy itself is a violent system. So therefore, violence is always on the bill of fare for each and every minute of each and every day. People are being violated. So that's what that is. So now, as far as the non-white people of the planet, many of them won't agree with this, but I'm saying that where females are concerned, because usually the violence is inflicted from male to female. In other words, I'm your boss. I tell you what to do. If you don't do it, then there's going to be violence in this camp. Well, now, the position that I have taken on that as a suggestion, according to compensatory, codified, counter-racist logic, since we're all subject to the system of white supremacy, and even if we weren't, I have a codified saying. And that saying is, first time, last time. What does that mean? First time, last time. The first blow that is struck by a male upon a female, a non-white male upon a non-white female, is a final announcement. That final announcement is this so-called relationship, which means that it really isn't a relationship, is over permanently. The first blow, you don't wait on the second one. The first time that happens, that's an announcement that everything that has gone before is now null and void. This so-called relationship, this arrangement that we have, this common law, whatever you want to call it, is dead. And it's dead. When you say dead, you mean permanently. There's no coming back Monday morning quarterbacking, saying, no, well, let's try it again and all like that. No. That should be understood. You know, victims of racism have been beaten by the white supremacists. I mean, beaten all across oceans and whatnot with whips, beaten with chains, stomped on, kicked. So now you're going to have a black male striking a black female after all of his failures to protect not only her, but his offspring and himself down through the ages since the beginning of racism, white supremacy. He's been beaten and scarred, whelps all over his back and whatnot, and then he's going to stand up and say, I'm the man of the house. No, you aren't. You have never been. Since the beginning of white supremacy, you've never been a man to start with, so you've got no business striking that female, period. Not one time. I don't care how mad you get. Walk around the block. I mean, go somewhere and sit by the river. Count up to 2,000. But you don't pass a lick. Mm-hmm. Now, you can argue, because there are going to be arguments. There's no way to avoid that, because we are all poisonous people. We all carry poison. That poison is going to come to the surface periodically. We're going to argue, we're going to fuss. You can blow up verbally, but there will be no physical altercation. And if we're going to have counter-racist codification, let's get it started. And it means it's not going to be any lick pass. Now, if you lose your temper to the point where you have to hit her, woman, I'm not taking this no more. Boom. You hit her. That's an announcement that this is over. And the lady is supposed to understand, I'm no longer associated with you at all. I need some new associations, period, into infinity, because you don't exist anymore. That should be her position, because she's earned that.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to get that in.
All righty. Get ready to dial up, my brothers and sisters, to call in 1-877-932-9766. And you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. Before we get started on the phone calls and emails, somebody, Mr. Fuller, I believe down in Texas, sent me an email requesting information, for your book. And they asked me to ask you if you would speak on your book. And also she asked for the additional word guide and how that is used. So could you speak on that before we go into our phone calls and letters?
Oh, sure. You can get the basic book and the additional book, which is a word guide, counter-racist word guide, a book about how to use words, what words to look for, be alert for, that your antenna should go up when other people use these words, and what questions to ask about these words. It doesn't include all the words in the English language, but certain key words to give you guidance. And then once you get this guidance, then you can go on your own and always have your antenna up for any type of words that you don't clearly understand. Always ask questions wherever you are. If people are talking to you, there are words passed to you that you don't understand. So you ask questions about these words. Mm-hmm. What does this mean? What exactly does it mean in this context? Now, you may think that you know what the word means, but you don't know what the other person means when they use the words. Language is tricky, so you have to stay on top of words when they're just kind of thrown at you sometimes.
Yes, sir.
And you don't quite comprehend. Mm-hmm. So you can get the basic book and or the word guide, one or the other. I usually recommend the basic book first, and then the other maybe later, by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com, like in production.
Yes, sir.
Producejustice.com.
Okay. And then there's an additional word guide you can get for an additional fee. Is that correct?
Yes. Both of the books are on that website.
Now, she also mentioned that particularly concerning the people overseas, she mentioned that one way that it can be done, and she did ask me to mention this, is that if that person overseas knows of someone in the United States, to have that person purchase the book and then using the U.S. Postal Service mail that book across the seas to them at a cheaper rate, as opposed to the situation that you are going to set up to make it supposedly easier for our overseas audience to get the book. Do you have any problem with that?
Yes, that's where the problem is. The problem is the price is astronomical to send the books overseas the way that I have attempted to do it. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to find a streamlined way of getting the books in large numbers overseas. Someone called me this morning from South Africa, and I had to tell them that I'm working on it as best I possibly can. I'm trying to get the best people to find out the most information. Dick Gregory said information is power. He's correct there, and for sure. And I don't have enough information about how to go about doing this in the most efficient and the most economical manner.
Okay. So if a person overseas contacts a person here in the U.S., and that person is able to buy the book and then send it across the pond or across the ocean to a person in another country, would you have a problem with that?
No, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, because the person has purchased the book.
Yes, sir.
And then the person can send it by whatever means they can.
Yes, sir.
However, I would say this.
Yes, sir.
The bootleg operations are both. They shouldn't happen.
Yes, sir.
No one should print the book in electronics or whatever,
yes,
and then send it to people that way.
Yes.
I mean, that is theft.
Okay.
And one of the basic 10 stops among black people is that we got to stop stealing from anybody, because that habit of stealing gets to be a habit.
Right.
I mean, once you steal a little bit, then you want to steal more.
Okay.
And the next thing you know, you're just a wholesale thief.
Yeah, wholesale thief.
And
yes.
we are known for that. I mean, Negroes always steal.
Yes.
I mean, and so we want, part of the future is that we want to get rid of that reputation.
Okay. Well, just to be clear, she wasn't talking about bootlegging. She was talking about an actual purchase from ProduceJustice.com, and then sending that book, for a price to whoever the contact is overseas, to get it. But she was just wanting to know if you had any problem with that. Not bootlegging it. No. This is going to be for purchase, and then whoever they are, they work out the arrangements to ship that book to them, in order for the people to get the book, because I understand that there is a tremendous hunger for your book. People really want to get that, and I was very glad to hear that people are interested in getting in the book. Anyway,
well, I'm working on trying to get it worldwide. I mean, but I don't have enough information yet.
Okay,
no one has brought it to me. I've been searching out people.
Yes, sir.
Trying to get the best procedure, because books do go overseas. I'm just trying to get the details on how you do that.
Okay. All righty. Let's see here. We got to do a little break here. Listen to this. Talktainment Radio is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility that have hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here's one I would like to share with you. It's called Scat Jazz with Connie Boykins. Now, Connie Boykins has collated, digitalized, photographed and organized many jazz musicians' personal collections of memorabilia, creating for them their own professional portfolios. Most of these musicians have never received professional validation, recognition, or attention for their lifetime body of work. Now, Connie has created and developed an educational seminar entitled Experience the Avenue, where information and materials can be shared with countless members of this community, Columbus, and others. Join Connie Boykin for Scat Jazz, where he brings to life the incredible music that inspires him and so many other jazz enthusiasts all around the world. Now, this is broadcast on Saturdays, and it is exclusively here on TalkTainmentRadio.com, which is radio the way it should be heard. Now, you can call in right now at 1-877-932-9766, and we will try to get you on with Neely Fuller as soon as we can, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and we'll try to get that on. Mr. Fuller, would you address this situation, the John Henson story? Simply, he's an NBA professional player right now. He's earned well over $10 million and just signed a contract for $44 million. He was at a jewelry store, I believe it was in Milwaukee. It's called Schwanke-Kasten Jewelers. He was wanted to attempted to go into the store. The employees locked the door, and he could see them, and called the police on him. And then the police got there and profiled him, and then when they discovered who he was, then they gave the okay sign to let him into the store to purchase the jewelry. Now, I don't know how much jewelry they had in there, but being a millionaire, he could have just bought just about anything he wanted to. Would you care to address that situation, how he was profiled? And by the way, he protested that and said that he would not like people to go in there and spend their money because of the racial profiling. What is your how would you address that?
Well, according to what I've written, the compensatory code, This is to be expected.
Yes, sir.
You should always expect. You're in a world dominated by racism. There's one government on the planet. That's the government of white supremacy. All of the so-called governments are just pretend governments. They seem like they're governments. The white supremacists make the major decisions among the people of this planet. Most of the people on this planet are classified as non-white. The major decisions that affect the everyday existence of anybody classified as non-white is going to be decided by racist man and racist woman, people who are sometimes, in a generic sense, called white supremacists, people who believe in mistreating people based on color. They're the smartest and most powerful people on this planet. So therefore, when he goes into the store, I mean, like I said just a few minutes ago, black people have been given the reputation of being potential thieves and robbers, you know, on a small-time level, because the greatest thieves are the white supremacists themselves. That's where we all learned it. I mean, because they steal whole continents, okay? So that takes care of that. I mean, you're talking about theft. I mean, they glorify thievery and robbery, but they pass it on to their slaves, to their victims. So therefore, we have that kind of reputation. So we should expect that. I expect to be profiled all the time. You should, you know, we're not in paradise. We are in a system of white supremacy worldwide.
Yes, sir.
If you have color in your skin, you are a prisoner of war already. To a prisoner of war walking up to a jewelry store, oh, sure, the doors are going to slam. And people are going to approach him with guns and say, what are you up to? You have color in your skin. You got a reputation. Your reputation is everything that's about not being somebody of any decency, of any correct intent. You people are throwaway people. You are a threat to our establishment anytime you show up without us sending for you. So therefore, you are eligible to be mistreated, pushed around, slammed to the ground, dislocated, forced to immigrate from one place to another because bombs are dropping all over the place.
Yes, sir.
This is what we do. And you don't understand this yet, you colored people of this planet? And we are doing it to you each and every day, all day, one way or another, in all areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. You are at war, or rather we are at war with you. Why? Because you are the incorrect color. You are the throwaway color. You're not even supposed to be here on the planet, but since you are here, we treat you like we want to treat you. Whatever sent you here must have made a mistake, because you people, you dark-skinned people, are a mistake in our eyes.
Okay. With that being said, in your humble opinion, with all that you've researched and written, do you think that you have done an accurate analysis of the root cause of the system of that you call the system of racism, white supremacy?
Yes, I have. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this kind of talking. I mean, that's explicit what I'm doing. That is the analysis. These are the conclusions that I have come to over decades. And I didn't want to come to these conclusions. I was, you know, the epitome of la-la land in my head as a young person. I believed in reading magazines like We Wisdom, something that's, you know, when I was, you know, pre-teens.
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
even before I could read. I mean, all about, you know, mom and dad and the picket fence and apple pie and, you know, and trips in the country, I mean, you know, and waving at people from, you know, the back of a haystack and whatnot, and everybody just happy and whatnot. That's the type of mentality that I had for the early part of my days. And I always wanted, you know, to go to Oz. I always wanted to go to Shangri-La, this, you know, perfect town, you know, where if people just rode around all day waving at everybody, and everybody waving back, and everybody happy, people, like the song "It's a Wonderful World," which should be the anthem. I mean, to send people in that direction rather than what we call the Star-Spangled Banner.
Yes, sir.
Bombs bursting in the air. We got enough of that.
Okay.
I mean, we could change that to Louis Armstrong's "It's a Wonderful World." At least that will put people on the wavelength that we should be.
Mm-hmm.
That should be the anthem right now, temporary, compensatory,
okay,
until we find a better one.
Okay, well, then, with that being said, then I was asked to ask you then, why haven't you seen the imbalance between the male and female principles in life as the beginning of discrimination among people, and racism, white supremacy as a military strategy based on an abstraction concept of people's natural, geographical, and cultural differences?
Wait a minute. What is that question?
It says, then why haven't you seen the imbalance between the male and female principles in life as the beginning of discrimination among people, and racism, white supremacy as a military strategy based on an abstraction concept of people's natural, geographical, and cultural differences?
Well, if I understand the question, there's something called the Darwinian theory, and that is, the survival of the fittest. In other words, I look around and see anybody who's weak, and just like animals do, just like a tiger in the woods, take advantage of anybody who's weak.
Okay.
And so that's the genesis, really, of the system of white supremacy. But before then, people did take advantage of people.
Okay.
That's why I said we should replace the entire system of white supremacy, not with black supremacy, but with the system of justice.
Okay.
And then I gave a compensatory definition for justice, which means 2 points,
okay,
guaranteeing that no person is mistreated, and 2, guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help.
All right.
That's the kind of world we should want.
Okay. That was from our sister in Atlanta. Let's go to line number, what is that, line number 1? Line number 1, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning. Dr. Fuller, a while back you said that, or you've been saying that you don't know who the white supremacists are. I read an article in that John Wayne gave in 1971 in an interview in Playboy magazine, and let me quote that. He said, "I believe in white supremacy. Until the blacks are educated to the point of responsibility, I don't feel guilty about the fact that 5 or 10 generations ago these people were slaves."
Yes. Well, John Wayne is considered a superhero for all time. Round them up, boys, Saddle up, boys, and let's go get them. Go get who? Them redskins, that's who. Those people who are inferior. Those people who should give up their land and let us settle in it. We know what to do with it. It might be a little pollution there, but we don't worry about that because we don't worry about anything. We're super.
You mean let us take the land?
There you go. And we'll exterminate you in the process because you red-skinned people ain't got no business here no way.
My follow-up question, do you believe, he was, at least he was honest. Then you know who the white supremacist is. He was honest about it.
This is why many white people say hooray for John Wayne. Now, he is the archetypical person who should populate the planet in huge numbers, and all these dark-skinned people are just a bunch of throwaway junk.
Wow.
So why was he so honest about that he believed in white supremacy?
Every now and
yet,
then you will find...
great, people who are just as great as he was, who would never admit that.
Yes, well, most white supremacists say, who, me?
Yes.
I'm not a white supremacist. I don't believe in racism. I'm a nice guy. Hey, I'll shake your hand. If you want a hug, I'll give it to you. I don't believe in that stuff and all like that. And all the time he's wink, wink, wink.
Yeah.
All right? This is the modern day, the refined white supremacist. Mr. John Wayne apparently wasn't very refined. That's why I'm quite sure that the refined white supremacist said, hey, we all feel that way.
Yeah.
But you don't say it out loud in this day and time.
Okay, we're up against a break we have to take. TalkTameAtRadio.com. Check us out on WCRS FM 98.3, Wednesday and Sunday evening. Blogs and podcasts are available. Download TalkTameAtRadio.com app to your cell or tablet. We go where you go. More of your calls coming up next on Radio the Way It Should Be Heard. TalkTameAtRadio.com.
TalkTameAtRadio.com is the premier internet radio platform offering 40-plus talk radio-style programs professionally produced, optimized for online distribution, featuring Columbus, Ohio on-air personalities. TalkTameAtRadio.com offers listeners diverse programming options covering topics such as arts and culture, love, life and relationships, technology, religion, paranormal activities, local and national politics, women's issues, alongside health and wellness. Listeners can access their favorite TalkTameAtRadio.com programs free of cost through the website. Download the TTR app to your cell phone and you can take us wherever you go. We have programs on demand to fit your schedule through our podcast. The address is TalkTameAtRadio.com.
At Word Automotive Sales, you can get a car with no credit, no interest, and no finance charges. That's right, no credit, no interest, and no finance charges. Word Automotive Sales will work with you. Call them at 614-237-5171 or stop in at 3333 East Main Street. Tell them that All in Our Family sent you. Don't forget the Word Automotive Sales.
614-237-5171. That's 614-237-5171.
Seniors, are you planning on setting aside a portion of your assets for children, grandchildren, church, or favorable charity? A1 Insurance can give you some insight about a single premium whole life insurance policy that is being utilized by seniors to train.
Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dr. Phil here. I help people solve difficult problems every day, but one problem has me stumped. Childhood hunger. Nearly 16 million children in America struggle with it. Luckily, the Feeding America network of local food banks collects surplus food, giving hope to hungry children and their families. But they need your help. Join me in supporting Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
My suit can still make an impression.
And my lamp can bring others a bright future.
Because when I donate my stuff to Goodwill, it helps fund job placement and training for people right in my community.
Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
When is the best time to talk to your family about staying in touch during a disaster? Amid the chaos? Or is the best time perhaps today? Go to ready.gov/communicate and make your emergency plan today. Don't wait. Communicate. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Go ahead. Make my day.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
You got the power.
Okay, welcome back to TalkTameAtRadio.com. The world's greatest radio, and that's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host of the Compensatory Concept, and you're with the most famous guest, Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., who is here to answer your questions, or rather to address your questions or your comments, and we'll go from there. Let's see. Oh, concerning the book, I think I got what Mr. Fuller was saying, that you can get the book by going to producejustice.com. That is the Independent Compensatory Code System concept. You go there, and then all the instructions to order the book is there, and then there's also a word guide that you can get for an additional fee. Someone came up with a suggestion that I had mentioned earlier in the first segment, and I believe that in the spirit of doing that which is right, it is better that you get the book from ProduceJustice.com than going to any of the other sources, because if I understand this correctly, it opens up the door for people to bootleg Mr. Fuller's book. Now, the intention may start off right, but, you always have some unscrupulous people who will do or try to circumvent what is right, and then the profits go to him and it gets all screwed up. But if you go to ProduceJustice.com, then things will be all right. And Mr. Fuller is working on to reduce the cost to eventually get the book for people overseas. Did I say that properly, Mr. Fuller?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I'm trying to get the widest distribution. I'm trying to also, while I'm doing that, I'm trying to actually bring down the quote-unquote domestic price of the book, which it was down at one time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but on account of certain financial arrangements and whatnot, the price has been inflated again up from where it has been,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still not as expensive as it was when it first came out.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where it is now. But I do say that there are some white supremacists, I suspect, who are already trying to pollute the message of the book.
Yes.
They are mixing parts of what they are saying with what comes out of the textbook for victims of white supremacy.
Okay.
And so people can be alert for that, particularly on the Internet.
Okay.
You'll find that there are already some people, and I think one of them even tried to contact me
Mm-hmm.
to say that, that it was, I think it was a white person, and I think this person, naturally, I think that this person could be a suspected racist. That's one thing I want to say right now.
Right, could
Not
be.
Not all white
Mm-hmm.
people are racist, all right? But those who are. And those who are smarter and more powerful than those who aren't.
Okay.
That's a flat statement.
Okay.
Because the evidence shows that. So, but they will look at what everybody is doing. They don't miss anything, and they will say, well, what we'll do is confuse the message.
Right.
So that people won't know who's saying what.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a part of the code itself says, whatever you do, put your name on it, even if you're using a pseudonym. Like Mark Twain's born name was what? Samuel Langhorne Clemens.
Right. Samuel Clemens.
But he went by the term Mark Twain, but everybody understood that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is okay, but when you make a statement, don't say that this comes out of Neely Fuller's book or something like that, or it's based on it. Say that this is your idea of whatever it is you're saying.
Yes, sir.
And whatever it is that Fuller is saying, say that's his.
Okay.
Whatever it is that somebody else is saying, say that it's theirs.
Okay.
So that everybody will not be what? Confused.
So go to ProduceJustice.com, and that'll eliminate all that other malarkey. Okay, let's go to line number 1. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Freedom Fighter, hang on. Go ahead.
I had a question, actually 2 questions, if you don't mind.
Okay, quickly. Mm-hmm.
Under the system of white supremacy, why is it necessary or important or possible to get a good understanding with ordinary white people?
Mr. Fuller?
Why is it necessary to get a good understanding with black people?
With white people, ordinary white people.
With ordinary, because what we call ordinary white people may be the white supremacists. It'll be some white supremacists among what you call the average white person that you can see walking up and down the street. Now, what is a white supremacist? It's just a white person that believes in mistreating people based on color. That's all that a white supremacist is, because that qualifies. You're right there. You believe in mistreating people based on color, and since white people are in position worldwide to do the mistreatment, so if a white person makes that decision, the mistreatment becomes easy.
Yes.
So we're going to have an understanding with them if we're going to populate the same planet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we're going to be on different planets, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
But on this same planet, there's no such thing as going to another place on this planet.
Right.
And the white supremacists are not involved in that place because they run the business of the entire planet.
They're not the dominant people. They're just in the position of doing what they do.
Or you mean dominant in numbers?
Yes, they're not the dominant.
No, they're not the dominant in numbers.
But they're in position to do what you just said.
Yes, if you're the smartest and most powerful people on the planet, the smart and most powerful people, the smartest and most powerful people in any given room, if it's just 10 people in a room, the smartest and most powerful person in that room is what? The smartest and most powerful person in that room. It's the same way with the entire world. Now, a lot of black people have problems with that. I mean, you know, when you say that, they'll say, oh, they are not smart. They're just evil. Well, that has nothing to do with being good. They mix good with being smart. Being wise, you might say, is the same as being good. But there are no good people on the planet. Why? Because the system of white supremacy does not allow that. So there are no wise people on the planet. They're just smart people.
Okay.
And I'm looking at a little, I just want to interject this right quick. Something I saw, I had a reflection back. There's a blues musician called Roosevelt Sykes from the old days, the late 1930s, early 1940s. He had a song, and the title of that song, I Got Too Smart Too Soon and Wise Too Late. I'm going to say that again. I got too smart, the word smart, too soon, and wise too late. See, smart is not the same as wise. See, you can be evil and be smart. A lot of people say the devil is smart. Okay, I guess the devil would be, all right, because the devil certainly fools a lot of people, if there is such a thing in Christian theology, all right. You couldn't be dumb, and rule over people. Tell people what to do, and they can't tell you nothing except just beg and beg and beg like black people do with the white supremacists. Why? Because they're smarter than we are. That's why, duh. We got to face up to that and stop bragging on empty.
Stop bragging on empty. What was your second question, dear?
I'm just curious about the format, or Mr. Bobby. Is this a new development, or have I been missing? It seems like there are many commercials, many commercials happening between the segments. On the show.
I have no control over that one. I can't tell you that. I can't answer that one for you. There might be an answer. I tell you what, if you contact the offices here, maybe they can answer that question for you. But I have no idea. Okay. All right, thank you for your call. Talktainmentradio.com, the world's greatest radio. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. If you would like to call, and we do thank you for all your calls, you can do so by calling 1-877-932-9766. Or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and we'll try to get your questions on. Before we get to Freedom's Fighters call, we are going to hopefully have Mr. Fuller address racial code words. We introduce those later on with the program, and if you have any questions on that, you can. Some of the code words are intercity, states' rights, forced busing, tax cuts, law and order, welfare, and food stamps, Shira law, and illegal aliens were some of the terms that were used to indicate code words that politicians use. We're going to go to the Gmail, and this is from Freedom Fighter, and he wrote particularly this last week, and then he wanted a follow-up question where he said, I find that most victims of racism think that white people will willfully change and or stop practicing racism, that they will somehow feel bad and just stop. He asked you last week, Mr. Fuller, do you think white people who practice racism will willfully change on their own and stop mistreating non-whites? And your answer to that was?
No.
Okay. And then he says, why not? And your answer would be?
Because there are too many benefits. People don't give up benefits willingly. I mean, why give up benefits? If I was born white, I would probably think the same way that many white supremacists think. I would take a look around and say, well, you know, why should I step down from something that I was born, if I'm born into a family or a group that has everything going for it? I mean, you know, apparently the smartest people, the most powerful people, you've got fun, you've got glory, you've got all kind of material benefits. That's what you get from white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
Those three things. You can have lots of fun, even mistreating people. In fact, particularly mistreating people. That's why we love guns. We love guns more than we love any type of medicine that ever came out. Our heroes in the system of white supremacy are not doctors, a doctor or a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we kind of look at that as, well, you know, they're okay, but hey, if you're going to have a hero, he's got to be wearing a six-shooter.
Okay.
Right.
He
He's
says,
got to be carrying a sword.
Okay. He says he deliberately asked several white people who think who they think is more ignorant about racism, white supremacy, what is it and how it works. And each time, with no exception, the white people I've asked say that white people are more ignorant. My question to Mr. Fuller is who does he think is the most ignorant about racism, white supremacy? What is it and how it works, and why does he think that?
The most ignorant about racism are the victims.
Okay.
This is why they haven't overcome it. Black people do not have racism as their priority and wake up every morning thinking about how they're going to get rid of racism. The average black person on the planet wakes up in the morning thinking about what? Well, they may be thinking about a lot of things, but they're not thinking about getting rid of racism. And that's what exactly every black person on this planet should wake up in the morning thinking about and go to bed thinking about each and every day with each and every breath that he or she takes.
Mm-hmm.
But we got every kind of nonsensical priority other than that.
Okay.
Yet we complain about our condition. And that is the reason we're in this condition, because we got every other kind of priority. Now, one of the main priorities among black people is what? Showing off.
Showing off.
Showing off to whom?
Yes, you mentioned
each
that.
other.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. If we tell the truth, that is our priority.
Okay.
Just trying to figure out a way to show off, even if showing off just means driving by and shooting at somebody.
Yeah,
that's showing off.
Okay. Let's go to line number 2. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question?
Yes, good morning. This is Tyreek from the Bronx. I have a question. My question for Mr. Fuller is, I've been reading over the past week a book called 100 Years of Lynchings by Ralph Ginsberg, a book that came out in 1962. And it basically has detailed information on most of the lynchings that took place in the early part of the century up until the 60s. And I listened earlier in the show, and Mr. Fuller was talking about how the black man has been mistreated, beaten with chains and ropes and things like that, and so he has no business even thinking about touching a black woman, which I totally agree. I don't think any man of any race should be hitting any woman. But my question to Mr. Fuller is, seeing the brutality that has been committed to all people of color, especially the black people, do you think that we should have some sort of a military force protecting us? I know you say when it comes to law enforcement, we should act as though we have been captured as prisoners of war because we are prisoners. But what about our interaction with the average white supremacist citizen who's not an officer? How do we go about handling that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tyreek.
That's what the entire compensatory counter-racist code is, is about. The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. That's the title of the book. Now, what does that mean? It means each individual victim of racism should have a code. The white supremacists as individual people. That's what makes them strong. The individual person, the individual racist. The individual racist man, racist woman have a racist code a white supremacist code of behavior that they exercise 24/7, each and every day. Black people usually think that we got to go through some type of elaborate organization. It's not going to happen. One thing, you can't organize against white supremacy while you're subject to white supremacy. That's not logical. It's not mathematical. You can unify, but you don't unify with each other. You unify with a code, and that just means instantly you start doing things that you haven't done before, and you start saying things that you haven't done before. But you just don't do anything and say anything. You say things according to a code.
To a code, absolutely.
Yes. So that calls for thought that comes before then.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've tried to write.
Yes, sir.
Things that you say, things that you don't say. Things that you do, things that you don't do.
Mm-hmm.
If you get a quantum number of black people on that page, just every day when they're coming and going, then this problem will be evaporated overnight.
Yes, I like what you said under the title of the book. You said a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism.
Yes, that's the subtitle of the book.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Brother Tyreek. Thank you for your call. And to go along with that, the critically acclaimed TV drama The Wire, there was a character on there called Bunk, who in real life was played by Wendell Pierce. And in one of the episodes, he mentioned that what Mr. Fuller just said, a man has to have a code. I think that's one reason why I like The Wire so much, is because it had a lot of messages in there if you listened closely. And Bunk said a man's got to have a code. Okay, going to our letters here. This is from Brother Farad. He says, good morning to all. He said, I would like to ask Mr. Fuller, does the one-hit rule apply to conflict between other black males and or so-called family members?
Yes, I said, yes, the male in the family striking.
Other than the female.
And if you're talking about whipping offspring, no, you talk to offspring. I mean, you sending a message right now. That old thing about, well, you whip these children in the line and all like that, and they'll never forget it and all like that. They become resentful. Now, sometimes it works, but most of the time, this is not the best way. Codification is about doing everything the best way. So you start talking to your offspring early about the kind of world that they're in, and cause and effect. I mean, how it's run. But you have to school yourself about this in advance. And questions that you can't answer, you just simply say, I don't have the answer to that question, but I'm going to try to find out. And then that's when you provide the answers. Because all young people, just like all people, they want answers to questions. Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? How come we don't have enough money? Explain it to them. Don't whip them. That's not getting anywhere. You're teaching them now that all things are settled by violence. So when they're 10 years old, they got that gun in their hand now, and they say, hey, this is the way you get things done. Killing people. And trying not to get killed in the process, but which, you can't outgun everybody. And I'm saying this to all the people out there who are carrying guns now. Remember, homeboy, you're out there with that gun, but you're not going to be able to outgun everybody because that's where you're headed.
Good point.
And you are going to get outgunned. I'll guarantee you that. You keep shooting people, you are going to get outgunned. You already know that. I don't have to tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a dumb move.
Okay. I got a question from Euclid. She said, is the code book separate to the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept? And if so, send me information to get it.
No, the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept is just a concept. I'm writing about a concept. I put all those words together, but it's just a concept, meaning it's not a reality until we make it so.
Okay.
Everything that I have written is not a reality as far as these suggestions are concerned until you make it so.
Okay.
But this is how all things are done. You first think about things.
Okay.
All inventors think about things. Then they speak and act on what they're thinking about. And then it becomes what we call a reality.
You know, and maybe it's me. I mistook her to think about the word guide, which she did not mention by name. But I hope that's what she mentioned, that she was really speaking about the word guide being the separate book. I think.
Oh, no, it's an addition.
It's an addition. Okay.
Right.
Okay, good.
It says so right there on the cover. An addition to a textbook, workbook for thought, speech, and our action for victims of racism.
Okay. All right, Euclid, there it is. There it is. You heard it. It's an addition. Mr. Fuller, we want to get into this while we have the remaining moments. These racial code words that politicians use. You have any thoughts on that? Inner city, states' rights, forced busing, tax cuts, law and order, welfare and food stamps, shower law, and illegal aliens, which they conveniently use. Hanley Lopez from Dog Whistle Politics wrote the book, and then it was interpreted by Janae Desmond Harris from theroots.com, went on to give a very good explanation about these different words. What is your thoughts on those code words being used by the politicians?
Thousands of them. If a person is a racist, everything that they use, if they're a refined racist, is a code word. Why? Code just means a way of going about doing what it is you want to do in the most efficient manner. That's what a code is. Going about doing what you're trying to do and doing it in the most efficient manner. So therefore, when they use any words, it's all a better way in their minds of doing what? Dominating and mistreating people of color.
Okay.
And any word that they use is designed to do that.
Okay. And quickly here, your thoughts on the 5 churches that have been burned in the Ferguson area, and no thoughts on that. And also the church drummer, Corey Jones, was killed by an officer named Newman Raja. The family is upset because I believe it was in Florida. The family is upset because no details were released by the police other than the fact that he said that they said that he had a gun, but he didn't have one. Do you have any quick thoughts on that?
Yes, in the system of white supremacy, and this is the codified response to everything like this. This codified response is, in the system of white supremacy, this is to be expected.
Wow.
We've got to stop thinking that we're somewhere else. We're in a system of racism.
In prison.
Yes.
Okay, we got to leave it there. TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. Thanks for listening. Thank you, callers. Thank you, Mr. Fuller, for all that you do. And next week, we'll see you.
With Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainment Radio.